I'm Dena Castricone, and in less than 3 minutes, we're going to discuss the risk that third-party vendors pose to your company's information and simple steps that you can take to minimize that risk. We know that vendors have been the cause of many data breaches, including the Target breach a few years ago, where a phishing email infected a vendor's system with malware. That malware permitted a hacker to gain access to the vendor's Target login credentials and steal massive amounts of consumer data. Vendor-caused breaches happen frequently, and regardless of fault, if your company's information is compromised, you are on the hook for the legal, operational, and reputational costs. The following are a few important, inexpensive, and simple steps to help minimize the risk of a breach caused by a vendor. First, do your homework on your vendors. Screen all vendors that will have access to your information or will be permitted to access your systems. Create a vendor security checklist or questionnaire that examines the internal security programs of those vendors. For example, you could ask the vendor to confirm that it recently had a risk assessment of its systems and that the vendor took reasonable steps to address any identified vulnerabilities or inadequacies. You could also ask the vendor how extensively it trains its employees on the vendor's information security policies and its program. Consider asking whether the vendor has had any recent security incidences or breaches. In developing an appropriate vendor questionnaire, it's always a good idea to consult with your IT department. Next, be sure that your contract with your vendor has a few key provisions. First, the contract should detail the security measures that you will require the vendor to implement. Be specific and reserve the right to periodically confirm that the vendor is in fact meeting those requirements. Again, your IT department will be helpful here. Second, be sure to have a provision that requires the vendor to provide you with immediate notice of a security incident that could impact your information. And define immediate. 24 hours is ideal, but 3 to 5 business days may also be acceptable. And third, the contract should have a strong indemnification provision that requires the vendor to cover all costs and expenses that flow from any security incident or breach that impacts your information. Finally, it is imperative that your company have adequate cyber risk insurance and that your vendor also have a cyber risk policy. Its policy should provide coverage for damage that your company may suffer as a result of the vendor's security incident or breach, which is often referred to as third-party coverage. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and thanks for checking in.